Hello, friends. How are you today? I am so happy to be here with you, telling the story of how energy works, how energy moves, and how we can empower ourselves when we learn more about our human consciousness, our human body, and our human energy field, and the conscious choices that we can make to take greater control over our lives and live in a way that helps us achieve our highest good and our highest outcomes in life. So, I wanted to chat with you about something that happened recently and what it means about how energy flows in your human system. It's a really, really important concept. But first, if you could like the video, subscribe, and share it if it resonates with you, I would really appreciate that. And it really helps a lot. So thank you for doing those things. Well, so I was with a friend who I don't see that often, and I enjoy sharing, stories or hearing about the latest when we get together. And usually there's dramatic tales, and so it's usually fun. So I had been guided to do things a certain way when I went to visit this person. And they ended up doing something that could have been, it could have been a negative for me. It was something that, I don't want to go into the details of it right now, but it does relate to current topics that are being discussed in the world. And at any rate, she did something that caused me to then have to deal with something myself. And because I understood what was happening, I was able to address the situation. And within a couple days, everything was fine. And I knew immediately what to do when it came up. And several days later, we were talking, and I had helped her with energy work to deal with a situation, and finally admitted that the situation had an effect on me as well. And she said, I didn't do it on purpose. And I said, that's good to know. I was joking with her, but I already knew that she didn't do it on purpose from a soul level, okay? But I also knew that she did do it on purpose from an unconscious level. Now, what am I talking about here? When we're living our life, before we come to consciousness about the fact that we can exercise control in our life, in our energy field, in our human body, that we could set parameters around these things, and that determines the outcomes in our lives. Well, before that happens, before we get conscious about this, we can be in an unconscious state about many things. And even when you're conscious, there seems like there's always shadow work to do. But I thought this was a great photo. I was looking for a photo that represented the concept that I want to talk about, which is when you're speaking, when you're taking an action, when you're doing something, who are you listening to as you think about doing that thing or you start to do that thing? Who are you listening to? Who is speaking through you, if that's occurring? Who is guiding your actions? Who is making your choices? And the reason I chose this image is because you can see that this young woman she's not fully present, right? So when I look at the energy of her, what I can see is that she's probably engaged in, like from the pineal gland, I would say, as an energy intuitive reader. She's likely engaged from the pineal gland, and she's aware of her energy field and moving it, manipulating it, okay? That's how it comes across. And I loved this image because look at the reflection in her eyes, okay? It's unusual, isn't it? And though I believe that this is the photographer, I'm not quite sure, but I think it is. The photographer is such an artist. And at first I thought, ooh, that's a reflection of another person in her eyes. Maybe it's the person taking the photograph of her. But what I did, I had to download version after version until I got to the most pixelated version. And this is her right eye. And you can see there actually is a person, right? So you can see that this is artistically done. The iris has been covered over in the pupil, and there's an image present there. And it was so perfect for what I want to talk about. Because they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. And here's her other eye. Okay, so it's the same image, slightly different, on a slightly different background, okay? And the eyes are the windows to the soul. So when we are embodying our life, when we're walking around, when we're just living, when we're sitting at the kitchen table, okay, who is in charge in your body? Who is in charge in your energy field, right? If I looked into your eyes right now, what would I see? Would I see the reflection of the light of the soul? Or would I see some other influence present? Now, the way that this image is done is so beautiful because it actually covers over that connection so that you can't see it and presents the idea of an image there. It's really beautifully done, and it gives her a very unusual look in the photograph, and I thought it was just beautiful. You can't tell, right, from when you step back like this from her eyes. Are her eyes are their pupils slightly oval? Are they like a slit? Are they just hidden by the light and there's the round human pupil there? And because you can see that her consciousness is slightly lifted in energy, what is in her field that she's connecting with? Is it her own soul, right? The truth of who she is, or is it something else? And so this is what I created a little presentation to bring awareness to these ideas. So this is the sun in the circle. Okay, this is the typical image that I use often in my videos to explain the human energy field. And within this, there's our human body in here. Okay, now here's the light of the soul pouring through the field, and here's the human energy field right here. Okay, that's what the circle represents. Now I'm not showing the physical body because I showed you the other girls, and is the first thing. And the second thing is that I want to focus on the energy here. So I made this for today's presentation because when you are fully consciously embodying your soul, right? I'm using the soul to describe the divine essence that is the truth of who you are. The true essence of who you are within you as a human being, okay? The divine force that incarnated as you and that is you in the moment, okay? So that's how I define soul. There are people who define the soul as like a interface, and I don't think that's not how I view it. But I do think there's an interface. Okay, so this is what I want to ask you about. Who are you listening to? As a living human being, okay, who has the ability to connect with God, living in the human energy field, who are you connecting with in the moment? Okay, and we're going to go over this in more detail in a sec, but I want to talk about how do you determine the nature of what's coming through you, number one. And number two, how to set energy parameters so that you are expressing in alignment with your highest choices, with the choices that you truly wish for yourself. Because until we bring consciousness to these things, we tend to think, oh yeah, I'm doing it that way. But when you look more deeply, you see that there might be something else going on. Now, who speaks through you besides your own self? And this also, you could also say, who influences you, who acts through you, who causes you to act? Like, what is the impulse for your intentions? For me, I would like that impulse to be my own soul. I wish for my own soul to guide me, okay? And some people say that some people would equate this with God's guidance for me, or the divine's guidance for me. And the reason that I don't use the word God very much when I talk about things, okay, sometimes I do, but is because there are a lot of people on the earth that define God differently than the rest of the people might define God. So I only became aware of this in recent years, but once I became aware of it, I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't. And so when I say God, I'm talking about the Most High, the creator of the universe, the source of all that is, okay? The source, the very source of my soul, the creator, spark of light, right, that I am, and that is within every living human being. What I determined as I started to become conscious of these concepts was that sometimes what I was thinking wasn't mine. And sometimes the voice that I was hearing wasn't me. And sometimes I thought that a certain path was correct for me, and I was just leaning on something that I had learned years and years ago that had no relation to my current reality. And as I started to much, much more closely look at these things, I learned quickly that I wanted to know exactly what was influencing me and what was the source of that influence. And if it wasn't my soul, okay, my God-given, of the creator of the universe, the soul that I am, if it wasn't that, I'm not interested. And I wrote down six categories here, but there are other categories as well I'm sure you could come up with. But there's our family experience, right, and our multi-generational experience. There's literally ghosts walking around in what you would call the Christian purgatory, which I would say is the astral realm of Earth. There's our cultural experiences, okay, that includes media and stories that are told culturally. There's the non-physical matrix, which is a real thing, and it has evolved and taken different forms, I think, over time. But at some point was most likely connected with every human being in the non-physical. and it's my view that that's been broken. There are negative, quote-unquote, ETs and other types of entities, and there are what I would call Luciferian influences. Basically, negative entities, again, the dog barks them away, that are, I would put them in the category of not wanting what's in your highest good. So what I would call these end up being unconscious influences, okay, especially family experience or cultural experience. But then there are actually anti-life presences, and those can include these factors here, okay? Then you have unconscious, the other unconscious category is just the disembodied people, beings that are in the astral that sometimes can come into contact with us, or we come into contact with them. Now, before I go further, I'd just like to say that the antidote to all of this is to invoke your connection with the light of your soul, and to invoke that presence, to invoke the protection of your spiritual guides of the highest light, your guardian angels. You can call on an angel of protection like Archangel Michael, whose color is this beautiful blue, and who is the Archangel of Divine Will and Protection. So I'm going to invoke his presence here during this entire video from the beginning to the end. And, but understanding that you have a divine right to be in your body, and that you are the living light of your soul, right, in human form. And right now that living light is expressed as sound, as I talk to you, for me, right? Right now it's expressed as physicality as I hold my hand, okay? So it's expressed in different ways that might be unusual for us to think about, but are all true. All versions of a truth. So this soul, this light, the light of the Most High, is what will protect you. So I just want to always give that antidote, because I want to declare, okay, a neutral space as I discuss this, okay, because my goal is for us to have authority, step into our own authority related to these topics, and have no fear, okay? Because the light of the soul, when you expand the light of the soul, okay, the darkness fades away. So what happens is there are two ways that we can experience these things: from a physical perspective and a non-physical perspective, a physical body perspective, which I would include our thoughts and our emotions, even though those are non-physical. And usually those are related to family experience, cultural experience. Then there's an aspect that's non-physical that we may or may not have been introduced to before we come across it. And that would be things like the non-physical matrix, negative entities of all kinds, and unconscious entities. So, what happens is that these non-physical entities, okay, if they are not of the highest light, if they're not angels, okay, or representatives of the celestial realm, okay, or representatives of your soul or your spiritual guidance of the highest light, then they may be trying to influence you in some way that benefits themselves, that causes chaos, just on and on, And so that's why I want to address this, because it really removes a lot of the chaos and unconsciousness from our lives when we start to bring attention to, are these thoughts mine? Are these emotions mine? And what's present in my energy field or outside my field? Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about is when people start exploring their psychic abilities, their intuitive, clairs, clairvoyance, clairaudience, all that stuff. It's interesting because a lot of times they'll just start checking in with whatever voice appears to them without qualifying it. And I had a young lady that I worked with who was explaining that, she was getting this answers and those answers, and I got a hit about what she was talking to, and I just looked at her and I said, look, okay, if we're just, you and I, we're just sitting in this room here, okay, and a ghost walked through, and this person died down the street some time ago, and we don't know anything about them, and they walked over here, and you're meditating on answers, and he or she starts talking to you, are you going to listen? Right? Why would a ghost that you know nothing about and they know nothing about you, why would they have any information that you would even care about? It would be like, this is the thing in the non-physical. People start checking in and they don't know what they're accessing or who they're talking to. So it would be like this. It would be like if I got the phone book for my local area and I threw it up, let it land on a page, and I picked one name on that page and I called them up and asked them about that one person, about my most deepest personal problems, and asked them for an answer. That is what talking to ghosts is like. You have no idea if you're talking to someone who even knows they've passed on. You have no idea what their life was like. And the fact that they're disembodied, walking around in the astral, is not a good sign. It means that they have some work to do as a soul, as a being, right? They're a bit lost. Now, not everybody in the astral is lost, but that's where we get to this side of the. So there are all sorts of entities that you will find, okay, in the non-physical. And what I have found is that because I have clairvoyance, which means that I can see in the non-physical, I have found that repeatedly certain entities will appear that look a certain way in the non-physical. And it's the most amazing thing, but over and over again, you see the same stuff. And since I have met with many people now, okay, over years, there are, the types of, I call them negative ETs because when you Google this kind of certain non-physical entities, they will be described this way as extraterrestrials in the non-physical. But there definitely are non-physical beings that look reptilian. There are non-physical beings that look like mantis. There are non-physical beings that look like grays. There are non-physical beings that look amphibious. There are non-physical beings that look like angels. There are non-physical beings that look like, Pleiadians or Sirians. There's non-physical beings that are blue. So, there's non-physical beings that are dragons. There's non-physical beings that are snakes. There's there's everything that you can imagine. There's animals that will appear in the non-physical. All sorts of animals as well. So the life in the non-physical is very rich. But I'm focused on the ones that are not, that don't have your highest good in mind. And the reason why is because I want to help bring some clarity, because this helped me Okay, this helped me. So that's why when you are engaging, okay, with the non-physical, whether you're feeling, whether you're seeing, whether you're hearing, whether you're sensing, whether you're knowing, it's important to know what level of frequency, of dimension, of type of being that you are dealing with. And I am going to explain how to qualify that, right? Because ultimately, in my view, what I want to communicate with is my soul. And then any helpful guides that are of the highest light, right? Because if I'm talking to a guide of mine that is a character, one of my past lifetimes, okay? Well, he or she can give me skill sets. I have past lifetimes where I was very physical, so they can help me with training, okay? Lift this way or whatever it is. I have past lifetimes that had other skill sets, and they can help share those with me, right? I can remember them. I can remember these skill sets. And in some cases, these kinds of beings can appear to act like guides for us. But again, if they are not of the highest light, like if they haven't been fully integrated at the soul level, some of these past lifetimes, if they're operating in your field without being integrated, can have an agenda. They really can. Because not all your past lifetimes were good guys or girls or women. Okay, not all your past lifetimes were on the up and up. And it's just beyond that. Sometimes you're in cultures where certain values are acceptable, and in the culture you're in now, those aren't. Or where you had goals for yourself as a being in that lifetime, and in this lifetime, you want something different. So who's running the show in your energy field? That's my question, right? Who's running the show? Now, the other type of being would be the obvious demonic entities, and there are quite a few dark forces that understand how to make themselves appear as a light being, and that's why energy parameters are really important. Some of these non-physical beings will try to scare us or give us information that is partly true to win our trust. And the way that I deal with this is I just don't talk to any beings that are in the fourth dimension. I certainly wouldn't talk to a being in the second dimension. I use the highest light interface, right? So if I want to know something about a being in a non-physical being that is presented, I'm not going to talk to them. And the reason why is because I don't know who they are. If they're in the fourth dimension, okay, that's a realm of duality in many of its aspects, which means they could lie to me, right? So when you think about what is influencing you in the non-physical, think about it as if it was physical, because your same human talents and abilities will work for you with what is in the non-physical. Your human sense of what is right, what is wrong, and what is right. Your conscience, your sixth sense, your intuition, okay, that your gut, all of this will work for you in the non-physical. There is no need to develop new tool sets. You already have everything that you need. How do you determine what is going on in the non-physical in your field? Okay, so if you perceive words or information or a sense or emotion or knowing, the first thing is to look at what is the quality of the information. How does it feel to you? And that's what I'm talking about with your human senses. Because if you're sitting talking to someone you haven't met before, you're going to get a sense of who that person is, right? And those same skill sets that you use to assess, do I like this person? Could they be a friend? Do I trust them? Do I have a sense that they're open and friendly? You have a sense of these things. So rely on your senses. So the quality of the words, the quality of the information, how does that come across to you? Okay. The next thing is the content of the words and the content of the information. What is coming across to you, and how does it relate with what you want for yourself? So let's say that I have a stated desire, okay? I have chosen and I choose to embody my soul to the fullest extent possible as a human being, right? In my physical body and my energy field and in my life, what I do, what I think, how I communicate. And I'll give you an example here. I will tell a story. There was one time, this was several years ago, okay, and I had started working with Archangel Michael. Well, I listened to something that Michael told me, and suddenly I felt, that's weird. Okay, so it's the same thing as if I was with a living human being and they said something that raised a in me, right? It's exactly how it was in the non-physical. And I thought, wait a second, am I really talking to Archangel Michael right now? And so I went back over and I reset my parameters. And now here's the thing. If you have a lot of, say past family experience or drama in your field, especially if it's active in my field right now, like I just got in a fight with a parent, okay, or a loved one, or if I have a cultural experience that's coming up in the moment for some reason, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this because of whatever reason, okay, these things are floating around in my field influencing me, right? And in the moment, they're not in alignment with my highest good, because now this has lowered my state of being such that I'm no longer connecting with Archangel Michael of the highest light, right? The celestial source of that being that is Archangel Michael. So what I need to do is I check my field, okay? I check my energy field, I check my body. I have to recenter and return to 0 point, recenter, or get back into that prayerful state of connection with God, the Most High, the creator of the universe, okay? And I restate my desire to only have my soul's light pour through my body and my energy field. And then I restate who I am willing to engage with, okay? So Archangel Michael of the highest light, all right? And then I check in. Is this who I am speaking with, right? And you need to find a way to be able to have that pure discernment. And usually it's a body mechanism. And I know that people know about this intuitively, because I've had person after person tell me, oh yeah, when things are really true, I get this eye twitch, or when I, my fingers rub and then something happens and then I know that's it. Or, I mean, it's literally, there's just amazing numbers of things that people have mentioned. Oh, when this part of my body feels, I don't know, your toe or something feels a certain way. But because when your soul, your spirit, is able to speak through the body, it subverts the mind and it subverts the emotions, right? It bypasses those so that you can get a clear answer. So now that you've restated, your energy field is embodying the frequencies that you wish. You re-ask, and that's when I realized, oh no, that the answer that Archangel Michael gives me is, X. And Y was because I wasn't in the place where I was able to receive that clearly, right? So over time, as you practice this, you get better and better and better at it. Really, it clears up things so much. It brings so much more consciousness to daily life, right? Now, I'll give you another example. I was working with a person, and they had done a session with someone else. It was a whole drama. Okay, there's a whole drama going on, and so they were in a session with someone else, and the other person was channeling Archangel Michael for them. And the channeler told them Michael said, a certain sentence. And immediately my spidey senses, like your hair raises when something is not right? So this is the human body response. That's all we need to understand this, right? As soon as she said that to me, I did my own checking in on it, and I said, listen, you have your own relationship with Archangel Michael, don't you? Yes. Okay. Now, think about who Archangel Michael is and what he represents. Okay. Would he have said a sentence like that? Okay. If he is of the highest light, the expression of the divine will, the archangel of security and protection for all of humanity. No, he would not have said that. Okay, then that channeler was not bringing through the Archangel Michael of the highest light. Who knows what that channeler was bringing through in that moment? Their own state of being was not at the level, okay, to bring through a clear message to you, or they had an agenda or something else. I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. You have the ability to tell by the quality of the words, the content of the words, or information or emotional content or whatever it is. You have the ability to determine this does or does not feel right. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, how do we set energy parameters, right, to achieve our highest outcomes, to fully embody the living soul that we are? I'd say that there are two key mechanisms. Okay, the first is to make a stated connection to your own source. Okay, the source of your soul, the living God, the Most High, the Creator of the universe, the Creator. The divine. However you address this being, this energy. Okay. You state it within yourself. Okay. It's between you and God. Okay. It's between you and your soul. So you get into that prayerful state. You get into that centered meditative state. You get into that state of 0 point. And look, sometimes we're not able to get into that state because there's just so much going on, right? Maybe we've gotten riled, or there's been some drama, or we're upset about something, but we want to get an answer, we want to check in. You can ask for this. Whether or not you can feel it or not, you can know that it's there for you, that this guidance is there for you, that this connection is alive within you. And that's the next thing, a commitment to alignment with your soul. So you commit over and over and over. It's essentially like a devotion every day, throughout the day, periodically, whatever works for you, but you check in, okay? Where am I in alignment? Where am I out of alignment? And the best way to do that is just looking at your thoughts and your emotions. And one of the best ways to see what your alignment is with your thoughts and your emotions is to simply say, is this mine? Okay? Because if you have a thought floating through your head, is this mine? Well, I don't know. Is that mine? It keeps coming up for me, but yet, when you check in, no, it's not yours. Could belong to grandma, could belong to your parents, could belong to someone you met and they impressed upon you for some reason. But this information is not in your highest good. It's not yours, okay? So you can ask that it be removed from your field. I like to work with my higher self on this, and my highest source level self that I have access to as a human being. Right? That's what I call my higher self. And, remove this from my field. Thank you. So I'll give you an example, and this is why when I work with people and I talk with people, I'll really drill down with them on what do you mean? So, for example, okay, I was talking to a friend the other day, and the friend said, oh, yeah, they're having these pains, and they think that it's related to, whatever it's related to. And I said, yeah, have you looked at your diet? What are you doing along there? And the person said to me, oh, I know I need to eat more vegetables. And so I just said, really? Do you? Like, what are you basing that on? Is it just something that you heard over and over and over and over again at the table from your mom, or your dad? Is it something that you saw in TV commercials over and over and over and over and over again until you thought that's what you needed to do? Is it something that the doctor says every time you go in, okay, but he's just saying it or she's just saying it in general, okay? So for this specific issue that you're dealing with, would vegetables be actually good or not? Okay, I don't know. I'm not a medical person, but I'm asking you to think about, why did you just say that? And the fact is the person that had said it was just unconsciously trying to grab for an answer, right? And this was the go-to because it's what they heard all growing up. This is what they heard. In the media. I gotta eat more vegetables. Somehow that's going to help me. So, anyway, after talking, this person is definitely now doing a more targeted approach, right? What do they actually need? And believe it or not, some vegetables are harder to digest, So if you're just randomly going to grab for vegetables and you're having issues in your gut, you might want to be careful what you eat, right? Or just any of the foods that you eat besides vegetables. And I don't want to get into anything about vegetables, but anyway, that's what I'm saying here. So where are we here? We're in cultural experience, right now. So it's the same thing when I was talking to someone who is, starting to speak with authority spiritually, and they're bringing through the Word of God, right? And so I said, okay, who's God? And I know that seems like, oh, I'm bringing through God. Isn't it obvious? No, I want you to tell me, what God are you bringing through? What's the quality? Who is this? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the actual God, okay? To the creator of the universe. No, I'm being responsible. I'm being conscious. I'm saying, who is influencing me and what am I dealing with? Where am I getting my guidance from? Because the guidance that I want, okay, is the guidance of soul, the guidance of the Most High, the guidance of my spiritual guides to the highest light. And it's the same thing, okay? I want you to consider this when people say, I just trust the universe. Then I say, really? You trust the universe? Do you know how much stuff there is in the universe that A, doesn't care about you, and B, isn't in favor of you? Okay? Namely, some of these forces here. Okay? So no, I don't trust the universe because it includes all this. Okay? The universe includes all this stuff. So I don't give it to the universe. Okay? Now, do I think of living, breathing creation? Yes. Okay. It's got my back when it's the creator of the universe that I'm calling on in creation. Okay? So a suggestion that I make is when you are calling on the universe, qualify. I want you to define the word universe. Who is the universe? What is the universe? What are the dimensional states? What are the energy layers? What are the frequencies? All right? So this gets more and more subtle to think about. And as we come more and more into consciousness about our lives, the energy that we create, emit, receive, and transmit, we find more and more layers where we were in shadow, but now we can bring that to light. But what I want to tell you is that doing these steps, number 1, affirming my desire to embody the soul. Number 2, continually in a committed manner, reaffirming that. Maintaining my energy field so that what's in my field is in alignment with my soul's energies. You set the parameters for what that is. How would you describe being in alignment with your soul? Okay, embodying your soul. Well, those are the energies that you want to set parameters around. And I'm not going to share the details of my parameters because it's specific. I want to say it's specific to you, number 1, but number 2, as you set parameters and then stuff happens and you thought you set parameters, you're going to refine these parameters. And I'll tell you what, I'm always refining my parameters and making slight adjustments, sometimes changing them, because something will happen and I'll say, oh, wait a sec. How did that happen? Oh, if I just adjust my parameter like this, I wasn't conscious, right, of that influence. So now I adjust my parameters for that. So what I have found is that a practice of consistent devotion to me, okay, and my connection with soul has brought amazing benefits in my life. And once we start living that way, all is turned to the highest good. Also because that's one of my parameters. That's what I intend. In this lifetime, all is turned to highest good. Right? Because who is guiding us? Who is speaking through us? Well, now in my consciousness, I can say who and what that is. Okay? It's my guides to the highest light, right? It's my higher self. Oh, wait, which is my higher self? Okay? Source, soul connected. Okay? Because maybe I have a 5th-dimensional self that's higher than this self that I am, right? So I want the soul source connected specifically for Susan, right? The part of my soul incarnated as Susan right now, living in this human body, alive. Okay, I am the master of my body. I am the master of my energy field. I am the master spirit here. I am the representative of the soul. And when you claim this, changes start to naturally occur in the flow of your life. Your actions start to come more into alignment. And it can be miraculous. I will tell one more story before we wrap up here. A few years ago, I was set to make a move. And I started to, before I was going to move, I started to look at places, but the same area kept coming up again and again and again. Okay. And I went and saw it, and I was like, dang, this is awesome. I'd love to move here now, but I can't. But it just stuck in my mind. And then, months later, I came back, and eventually I committed to moving to the area, okay? But I was guided to move to a certain location, and rationally it did not make sense. There were reasons why I told myself, nah, I shouldn't move there because of X, Y, and Z, which I would put into family experience and cultural experience. But I decided to listen to the guidance of my soul, okay? And to trust that I was being guided. It didn't make sense, based on those things. And if I had told my good friend at the time what I was doing, I knew that they would come at me with some of this stuff. And I just thought, I'm going to take a leap of faith. Well, I did. I moved to the new location, and what happened was I started having experiences there and photographing things that I could only do there. And it completely opened up my life in terms of my creativity, the content that I was creating, this is for my other blog, okay? And I ended up having an article go viral globally, okay? And I had another article go semi-viral, okay? So it was incredible. None of that would have happened if I had not moved there. And those experiences gave me valuable skill sets for what I am now doing. Invaluable. And if I had only relied on, what my family experience was telling me, what my cultural experience was telling me, I wouldn't have moved to that incredible location. But I did, and it was amazing. Now, I want to tell you another confirmation that I had. Years later, I was driving, and I suddenly had a flashback to a dream I had had several years before I moved to that place. And I realized that the way the freeway looked, the freeway exit, the location, was exactly like a dream of a journey that I had, of journeying to a new place to live. And it was not in my consciousness. The whole time I was looking for this new place to live, I didn't remember that dream at all. It was maybe even 3-4 years after I had moved that suddenly the whole dream I was like, oh my goodness, I was meant to go that way, and it was worth it. It was worth it to choose to embody my soul, choose to follow my guidance, trust in my guidance, whether or not it made sense with the physical world, right, around me. And go for it. Because, friends, miracles do happen, and miracles can occur. And the more we walk the path of the soul in our living life as a human being, the more these things unfold before us.